Hey everyone, welcome back to bageltcg. Today we're going to be starting the set review for Uprising. These are going to be based on Classic Constructed. I may or may not do separate reviews for Limited or Blitz, but as Classic Constructed is the premier format of Flesh and Blood and the preferred format for me, these reviews are all going to be based on Classic Constructed ratings for now. Before we hop into the video and look at all of the reviews, first, I want to give a shout out to Whoopdom Wizard, who is one of the sponsors of this channel. You can use the affiliate link below to not only support me, but also get 5% off box breaks. They have really great pricing, like $40 on the Classic Battles decks, which is as low as they're allowed to charge, I believe. They've got cool bundles using the Classic Battles decks, and I'm sure they're going to have great pricing on Uprising, as well as fast shipping too. Also, be sure to check out my Patreon. I'm going to start putting out videos after these videos on my Patreon that are going to be kind of longer, more laid back, and extended format if you want to hear my in-depth thoughts on everything I'm talking about here. That'll be through this Blueberry Bagel tier. I do want to thank the 2 new patrons I've gotten since my last video. So we have Felipe Paquin, and we have DudeBob16. Thank you for the support for both of you. And now let's hop into the review here. So this is going to be for DROMAI. I'm just going in set order in terms of like the numbers. So I think DROMAI is the first in the set order. She is our Draconic Illusionist here. And we're going to look at first the different ways in which the star values mean, right? So 5 stars is meta defining. This means it's something that other decks are going to have to take into consideration when they're building their deck, right? So, for example, Kano, if Kano's really big and he's dealing a lot of arcane damage, other decks are going to have to add a lot of arcane barrier to their sideboard. That's kind of meta defining in a way, right? Other decks are going to have to worry about it. 4 stars is core. These are really good cards. DROMAI should almost always be playing these cards. 3 stars is playable. These are good cards that DROMAI is going to play sometimes, but aren't going to be in every version in every deck of DROMAI. 2 stars is niche. This card could sometimes fit into the deck, but it's not incredibly powerful, so it's going to need kind of a good meta reason to be added. And 1 star is probably what I'm going to be wrong about the most, and I put this as unplayable. Like, this card probably isn't good enough to ever see play in the deck, and I'd be a little surprised if it does see play. It'd have to be for a very niche reason, right? So I'll probably be the most wrong about 1 star and 5 star, but we're going to do our takes, and we're going to stick by them. So let's look at the hero first. So Uprising set number 1 is the token of DROMAI Ash Artist. She is the Draconic Illusionist hero, which means she can have Draconic cards, Illusionist cards, and Draconic Illusionist cards. She has 4 intellect and 40 health, which is very standard. She has 2 abilities. They both care about red pitch values. The first one is whenever you pitch a red card, you create an Ash token. And we're going to look at those in just a second here, but she does give you some sort of advantage of pitching red cards, which is a little counterintuitive just because we're not really wanting to pitch red cards usually. Usually if you're pitching red cards, you're not super happy about it in Flesh and Blood because it's not very efficient. But our second ability does not require the pitching of red cards. It just requires you to play a red card, which we are much happier to do. Playing red cards in Flesh and Blood is what you ideally want to do. Most of the red cards are going to be the best rate for what they do. So we're very happy to play red cards. It says if you played a red card this turn, dragons you control have go again while attacking. DROMAI makes allies, which are a kind of not new because we've seen them before in shadow cards, but relatively new. There's not many allies before DROMAI, so an unexplored type of card type, and they're a dragon ally that she'll make, and this will give them go again. So it's very important to DROMAI's strategy that you typically play at least 1 red card per turn at the start of anything you're doing just to make sure they have go again. Let's move on to the rating. First of all, 3 stars. I think DROMAI is interesting. Based on the cards we've seen so far, she's really weak to Phantasm pops. She doesn't have a Phantasmal Footsteps like Prism does, and so I'm a little worried about her gameplay into like Brute and Guardian and stuff that can pop it. So she definitely has some weaknesses that Prism didn't have, and yeah, I think she has the potential to be a really strong hero, but I think she's definitely going to make you work for it, and I don't think she's going to be an easy deck to pilot at that. All right, let's look at the tokens she's utilizing. So we saw when she pitches a red card, you make an Ash. There's no per turn limit to that. So if you pitch 3 red cards in one turn, you'll make 3 ash. Obviously, pitching 3 red cards only gives you 3 resources, so it's not very efficient, but she does give you an advantage from pitching those red cards. Ash is a token. It just sticks around on the board. It has the effect Material, which is a new effect. While Ash is under an object, that object has Phantasm. Basically, all of our dragons require you to put them on top of an Ash token. So you take the Ash token, you put the dragon on top of it. Now that dragon is an object under or on top of the Ash, and so that object will have Phantasm. So Ash is required to build your dragons, and it gives them Phantasm, which means when it's defended by a non-illusionist attack action card with 6 or more power, it is destroyed and you close the combat chain. So gives all of your dragons that Phantasm weakness. Our other token is Aether Ashwings. These are our smallest form of dragons. They do require an ash to be put on top of as well. They are one attack, 1 health, which means if an opponent attacks them for 1 damage, they die. And they have Arcane Barrier 1. So she's definitely going to have some nice solid game into Wizard just by having all of her little tokens have Arcane Barrier. Her weapon, this is her only weapon. There's no majestic weapons in Uprising, so this is basically what she's stuck with. It has a good effect though. You're always going to play this card. It says dragon allies you control have once per turn action, 0 resources attack. This is literally the only way to make it so that your dragon allies can attack, so this is your only option. You're just playing this card 100% of the time. Pretty simple. I'm just giving it 4 stars because it's core, because it's basically, right, you have to play it. So it's not like meta defining. Other decks don't have to think about this. It's just like, you play this card, it's must, right? Next is her common arms. Silken form. Instant, destroy them. Transform an ash you control into Aether Ashwing, which is that 1/1 token. It has the ability Quell, which means if your hero will be dealt damage, you can pay 1 resource to prevent 1 of it if you do destroy it at the beginning of the end phase. So for 1 turn, you can pay 1 resource to prevent 1 damage from a source. It's only 1 damage on that source, but you can do it on multiple sources. So if they swing for 1 5 times, you can pay 1 resource to prevent 1 each of those times. If they swing for 2 5 times, you can send 1 resource to prevent 1 of that. So you'll take 1 instead of 2 for each, right? So it's an okay effect. I don't think it's incredible. I'm sure there's much better arms, like the legendary illusionist arms she would rather run. So I don't think this is going to see a ton of play. I'm going to give it 2 stars. Quell just seems to be not quite good enough as of a keyword for Classic Constructed. All right, our first card is the Majestic Burn Them All. It blocks for 3. It's a red color strip, and it costs 0. It's an illusionist action aura. It says go again. Once per turn, when a dragon you control attacks, it deals 1 arcane damage to each opposing hero. At the beginning of your end phase, put a raise counter on it and destroy it unless you banish a red card from your graveyard for each raise counter. So basically, this will stick around for a few turns. It'll deal some arcane damage, 1 arcane damage each turn. And it's a 0 cost with go again, that's red, so it'll turn on Dromai's ability of having played a red card. I think you'll always play this card. It does kind of everything you want. It's 0 cost and it turns on your dragons that turn having go again. And it blocks for 3. It does some extra damage. I'll give it 4 stars. I don't really see a world where Dromai doesn't run this card right now. Next, we've got our first of our 3 legendary dragons. This is Dracona Optimi. All the dragons, I'm going to kind of skip over this part in the future, but every single dragon blocks for 3, has go again, transforms an ash, and is a red pitch. So the only thing I need to worry about is the cost of the card and what it does, right? So this one costs 6. It's your most expensive dragon. It's a legendary, so you can only have 1 of it. It has the same text that every dragon has: transform target ash you control into this, go again, put the ash under him, blocks for 3, like I said. This is a 6/6, so it takes 6 damage to kill. Your opponent has to deal 6 damage in 1 turn to this dragon to kill it. You cannot block your allies, so you can't stop them from doing it. If they swing 3 damage into this 2 times, it dies. There's nothing you can do about that. You cannot block your allies. So it says, whenever it attacks, reveal the top 3 cards of your deck. He deals arcane damage equal to twice the number of red cards revealed this way to them or an ally they control. So he can potentially deal 12 damage if you reveal 3 red cards. He deals twice that 3, so he'll deal 6 arcane damage. So really big boy, pretty solid. I mean, you're going to probably play all the legendary dragons just because they have so much power packed into them. The big weakness, obviously, is that he has Phantasm because he's on top of an ash. So if he gets blocked by a 6, you paid 6 resources for them just to block with 1 card. So He's quite strong, but you definitely have to play around him having Phantasm and make sure you have one of your passing Mirage effects out. Regardless, though, very strong effect, and we're definitely going to be looking to play this card whenever we can to deal tons of damage to our opponent. 6 damage is not that easy to kill. I'll give it 4 stars. I think all of the legendary dragons are pretty key to our strategy. The next one is 1 resource less, so Themai is 5 resources. He's a 5/5, so there's a 6 mana 6/6, a 5 mana 5/5, and a 4 mana 4/4. The 5 mana 5/5 says whenever he attacks a hero, reveal the top 2 cards of your deck. If one or more red cards are revealed this way, put that many -1 counters on equipment they control. Then if it has 0 defense value, destroy it. This card's insane. It's almost definitely the best dragon in her deck. Destroying equipment is amazing in Flesh and Blood, and this is on attack trigger, so it doesn't even need to deal damage. It just attacks and then destroys equipment. Themai is amazing. If you can get 2 attacks in with this card, you might just win the game. So yeah, destroying equipment's really good. Early attacks with this are going to win games for sure. 5 stars. Opponents are going to have to play around Themai, make sure they don't leave a ton of equipment up. Maybe use their Snapdragons early so it doesn't just get destroyed for no value. So really important dragon to our deck, and we're definitely going to try to get Themai out as early as possible just to smack our opponent and take their equipment. And then our last legendary dragon is Daminia, we'll say that. It's a 4 mana 4/4. Whenever it attacks a hero, you reveal just the top card of your deck. If it's a red card, you look at their hand and banish a card. So really good effect. They don't get any card to replace it, right? So you're just putting them down 1 card. You just got to take their best card from their hand. So this is probably the second best legendary dragon. I do think the 6 resource one is the worst. Disruption is really good in Flesh and Blood, taking cards away from your opponent, taking equipment away. The 6 mana one, Jacana Optimi, just does damage, so it's not really taking anything away from them. So this one's probably the second best. Really solid effect. 4 health is kind of a little sketchy just because it dies to like any of the Scar for a Scar type cards that are 0 for 4s. But it gets a lot of value the turn it comes out, and maybe you can take away the card that would have killed it. So definitely a solid card here. I'm going to give it 4 stars. Like I said, you'll play all of the legendary dragons, and this one's pretty good too. Onto our rare dragons. Asvolai costs 0. It is a 2/3. Whenever it attacks, you have him deal 1 arcane damage up to any 2 targets. So he's basically hitting your opponent for 3 because he deals 2 physical and 1 arcane. He can also then shoot something else for 1 arcane, so a little dragon or anything like that. Pretty solid. I think you'll play this. 0 cost dragons are great because they turn on your hero power. Since they're a 0 cost card that's red with Go Again, it'll give your other dragons Go Again. I think you'll always play this. Really solid. 4 stars, definitely going to play all 3 of these. Our other 0 cost dragon is really good. We have Cromai. Cromai is a 3/2, so a little easier to kill. Once per turn, when it attacks or leaves the arena, you gain 1 action point. This is one of our ways to get around Phantasm pops. When he attacks, you gain an action point, so that helps against Phantasm in the future, but also if they pop him, so when he leaves the arena, you'll gain an action point, so he won't just end your turn if he's destroyed through Phantasm. So Cromai, really solid card. Definitely important to stop all of those Phantasm pops our opponents are going to be throwing at us. I'm going to give this one 4 stars as well. Kylorea costs 1 resource. It is a 4/2, so pretty low on health here. When it hits a hero, so you have to hit, you gain control of an item that they control. If you don't gain control of an item this way, you draw a card. So I'm going to give this one only 3 stars. I think it's definitely playable, but because it only has 2 health, which is really easy to kill, and it costs you a resource to play, and it has to hit for its effect. So I think it's quite good. 1 for 4 damage is pretty nice, but I'm just a little worried about how easy it is to kill. So I think you'll probably play all 3 of these. I expect to play all 3 of these, but I'm not as confident, so I'm just going to give it 3 stars. Miragai is maybe our best dragon. It's passing Mirage on a dragon, so your first dragon attack each turn loses and can't gain Phantasm. So DROMAI's biggest game plan to stop any kind of Phantasm pop on her legendaries is playing our 1 cost Miragai here. He costs 1, and he's a 2/4, so he's pretty hard to kill, right? 2 attack, 4 health, not that easy to kill. And so you'll play him for 1 resource, and then maybe play your Themai for 5 resources. So you can pitch 2 blues and play both of these. As long as you have 2 Ash out, that'll give you Mirror Guy and your 5 resource. You might not even want to attack with Mirror Guy just because you don't want him to die to a Phantasm pop. But yeah, this will be a nice way to protect your big legendary dragons. Because of how important it is, I'm going to give it 5 stars. The part that's meta defining is that your opponents can't just play Phantasm pops. They also have to play cards that can efficiently kill Mirror Guy. Next, we've got Necria. Necria is a really solid dragon. It costs 3 resources, so a little expensive here, but it has lots of stats. It's a 4 attack, 7 health. Whenever it deals or is dealt damage, you put a -1 health counter on her, and you make an Ash token. So we really don't want to use our hero ability to make Ash tokens. Pitching reds is just not good. You should try to never pitch red cards in Flesh and Blood, so even though we're getting advantage from it, we're ideally trying not to do it too much. So having cards in our deck that make Ash tokens is really key. You're always going to play 3 Necria. It's really great stats for 3 resources and making extra Ash tokens. It's going to at least replace itself the first time it takes damage. Unless it's popped by a Phantasm, it's going to make it replace itself with an Ash. And sometimes it'll hit the opponent twice or take damage twice, and it'll make 2 Ashes. So really solid. 4 stars, core to the deck for sure. Next, we've got Uvia. This one's two resources. At the start of your turn, or when it enters the arena, you can transform 1 Ash you control into our token Aether Ashwings, which are 1/1s. It's a 1/6, so it's pretty hard to kill as well. I really like this card as well. In combination with Necria, we can just keep pumping out our 1/1s. This is going to be a nice engine to just make a ton of little 1/1 bodies that we can swing out and attack with. Really love this card. I like how hard it is for our opponent to kill. Because it only swings for 1, it might not even be worth swinging with this, just because it would be popped by Phantasm. So if you think your opponent's going to pop it with Phantasm, I really think you might just keep this back. And yeah, just keep making 1/1s with it. So really great card. Gonna give it 4 stars here. Another core card. Next we have Themai. This card's been talked about a lot because of how strong its effect is. It's a 2 resource 3/4, and it says your opponents can't play cards or activate abilities during your turn. So what that means is no Kano ability, no Oldham ability, no defense reactions, no instants. Basically, your opponent just can't do anything on your turn. Turns off a lot of decks, and because of that, it's going to be pretty meta-defining. You know, Kano is going to have to play Talishar, basically, the weapon that attacks for 4, just to be able to kill Themai. So this card's going to be pretty meta-defining. People are going to have a way to kill Themai if they're trying to play on your opponent's turn. If their deck that plays defense reactions, they got to focus on killing Themai. I think this card's really strong. Against decks that don't play anything on your turn, you might even sideboard this out, but it's just so strong in the matchups that do want to play on your turn that I think it can be pretty meta-defining. Okay, that's all the dragons. We're going to move on to our attacks here. We have Billowing Mirage. It costs 1, it blocks for 3, it attacks for 1, 2, or 3, and when you attack with it, you can transform up to 1 Ash you control into an Aether Ashwing and then go again. So this card's pretty okay. The rate's fine. It's nice that it has go again. The problem is it doesn't make Ash, and we kind of want all of our cards that aren't dragons to be making us Ash. Because the dragons cost Ash and don't really make Ash tokens, we're trying to make Ash through other methods. So this card's fine, but it's using up our Ash tokens instead of making us new ones. So I think maybe the red could see play just as a way to turn on her go again, but I'm not in love with this card. Next, we've got Dunebreaker Senepai. This is a Phantasm attack here. It costs 1 and it blocks for 3. It attacks for either 3, 4, or 5. I only have some of the pictures of these from the box openings. It has go again built in, which is nice. We don't have Luminaris, so our illusionist attacks need to have some way to have built in go again, unless there are dragons who get go again from our hero ability. But it says when it's destroyed, you make an Ash token. This card, once again, is just okay. We don't like just throwing Phantasm at our opponents. It does make Ash, but they have to destroy it, so they could just take, the damage, and it doesn't really do much. I think the red is nice because a 1 for 5 is pretty solid, and if they break it, you get Ash, so it works out. I think the red could definitely be playable, but the rest of them I'm not really as interested in here. Next, we've got Dust Up. Dust Up is a great way for us to make Ash. It costs 0 and it blocks for 3. It attacks for either 2, 3, or 4. And when it hits, so it has to hit, you make an Ash token. Then you can also transform up to 1 Ash you control into an Aether Ashwing. So you don't have to transform an Ash. A lot of times you're going to choose not to because you'll want to save some Ash for your dragons that you're playing from your hand. But the nice thing is your dragons all have go again. So usually you're going to end your turn still having an action point. So the fact that this doesn't have go again is totally fine. You can just play it at the end of the combat chain. The red's pretty nice. So you attack with all your dragons. You still have an action point because they all had go again. You attack with Dust Up as a 0 for 4. And your opponent either lets it hit and you get a free Ash, or they block it, in which case you're taking cards from their hands. So pretty solid here. I definitely like red Dust Up. The blue's pretty playable as well because it is still a 3 block. And then if you have it and it's an extra card in hand, you can still throw out a 0 for 2 with that at the end of the combat chain. Your opponent's probably not going to want to block that because it's not really worth them blocking a 2 damage attack, and then you'll get an Ash token. So really like Dust Up here. We have another Phantasm attack here called Ember Maw Senepai. This one's worse than the other Senepai card because it doesn't have go again. It basically just attacks for more. So it's a 2 for 3. It attacks for 6, 7, or 8. And when it's destroyed, it also makes an Ash token. But once again, this one doesn't have go again. So you're going to be throwing this at the end of the combat chain. I'm kind of liking the red a little just because it's a 2 for 8. So they might not want to pop it. And then that's a lot of damage. So I can maybe see the red. Maybe the red should get 3 stars here. But just don't love this card. I think the blue or the reds could be a little better than I expect. But I'm not super in love with this card. I think we just have better options. Card I am really in love with is Sweeping Blow. This is a 1 resource, blocks 3. It has go again and it attacks for either 1, 2, or 3. And when you attack with it, so it doesn't have to hit, when you attack with it, you make an Ash token. So this is guaranteed Ash token creation. It blocks for 3, which is amazing. I think we're playing almost always the blue and the reds. It has go again, so you can also use the red to turn on our go again on our dragons. But it's just a great card. It's guaranteed Ash generation. It doesn't have Phantasm or anything, so our opponent can't pop it. So we're just playing this, making Ash tokens, going again, and then swinging with our dragons. Really, really like this card, and I think even the yellow could be playable if we want all 9 of them. But I think we're definitely playing the blue and the reds almost always. Next, we've got our non-attack actions. We've got Rake the Embers. This card's pretty solid. Unfortunately, it only blocks for 2. But for 1 resource, we make an Ash token. Then we can transform 1, 2, or 3 Ash tokens into Aether Ashwings, our little 1/1s. And it has go again. Once again, we're not as interested in our Aether Ashwings. They're definitely great. If we have extra Ash sitting around, we'll definitely love to make an army of 1/1s. But we usually want to hold 1 or 2 Ash back to make our big dragons. So the best thing is that this will just make you an Ash on command. The red's nice because it turns on our go again. The blue is fine to pitch. I think we could definitely see play in the blue or the red. But it only is a 2 block, so it's just an okay card. Skittering Sands here, it doesn't make Ash at all, which is kind of the problem. It is a 0 cost non-attack with go again. Also only blocks for 2, which is another problem. It transforms an Ash into an Aether Ashwing, and then it gives that Aether Ashwing either +1, +2, or +3. The red one's nice because it's a 0 cost red card with go again, so it'll turn on our hero ability. So I like the red one. Just it's kind of like a 0 for 3, so nimblism, but also kind of a 0 for 4 because it gives you a 1/1 to put that on. So I like the red one a good bit. I can see it seeing play. I don't really see play for the blue or the yellow. They just deal less damage and they don't give you any benefit really. Stand Cover is a great card. It's another reason we want to keep some Ash up and not always use all of our Ash. It's a 0 cost instant. You give an Ash you control either Ward 2, 3, or 4. Ward is amazing. It just prevents the next 4 damage that you would deal, or 3 damage, that you would take. So the next 2, 3, or 4 damage you would take. This works on arcane damage, which is amazing because it's just any damage. So if your opponent's attacking you for 4 arcane, you can just use Sand Cover Red to prevent all of it. It's also an instant, so it gets around Dominate. If they're doing a Crippling Crush Dominate, you can block with, a D-React, a card from hand, or a D-React from Arsenal, a card from hand, and this, because it's an instant, so it doesn't care about Dominate. So Instance that block with Ward 4 is just amazing. We're pretty much always going to play 3 of the red ones. The blue one's not an efficient enough rate of only Ward 2. You don't want to give up an Ash token just for 2. The yellow one's okay at Ward 3, so we could maybe see it if we want more, but I think we'll definitely play the red one here. And that's all the cards. I talked really fast because I recorded this video before, and it went well over 40 minutes, and I didn't want to do that again. I know I went fast. If you have any questions, if you want to talk about any of these cards, please hit me up in the comments. Let's have a conversation about them. I'm going to be doing more of these. Like I said, I'll have a longer form version where I can actually breathe and talk on the Patreon. But I just wanted to try to make a shorter 25-minute version for the YouTube channel. Remember to like, subscribe, comment. I appreciate the support. I appreciate you watching. Let me know what you're going to be doing with DROMAI, and I'll see you guys next time.